November 7, 1989. Malaysian Airlines Flight MH192 departed from Kuala Lumpur International Airport. The flight was en route to Kathmandu, with 167 passengers and 11 crew members on board. The captain was 47-year-old Rajiv Chandra, a highly experienced pilot with over 15,000 flight hours, including more than 2,000 hours in the Himalayan region. The first officer was 36-year-old Li Wei, a talented aviator who had transitioned to civil aviation after 8 years in the Malaysian Air Force. That day, one of the most powerful storms of the decade was raging over the Himalayas. Meteorologists recorded wind gusts up to 120 kilometers per hour and a sharp drop in atmospheric pressure. At an altitude of 7,000 meters, the temperature was a brutal -58 degrees. Despite the extreme weather, MH192 was cleared for takeoff, as forecasts predicted better conditions by the time it reached the Himalayan zone. The last radio contact occurred at 6:43 p.m. local time. Captain Chandra reported entering a turbulent zone and requested permission to change altitude. Control, this is flight MH192. We're entering heavy turbulence, requesting descent to 7600. The transmission cut off mid-sentence. The aircraft disappeared from radar, as if it had vanished into thin air between the mountain peaks. A search operation began immediately, but was severely hampered by the brutal weather. 8 helicopters and 12 ground teams combed the presumed crash area for 3 weeks, but no trace was found. In one of the most inaccessible regions of the Himalayas, with peaks over 7,000 meters high, the aircraft had seemingly vanished without a trace. A month later, Nepalese authorities officially called off the search, declaring all passengers and crew deceased. Among the 167 passengers were tourists from 14 countries, a group of Buddhist monks on their annual pilgrimage, and famed Himalayan climber Johann Steiner with a 5-person team. For the families of the missing, it marked the beginning of agonizing years of uncertainty and fading hope. For 34 years, the fate of flight MH192 remained a mystery, until June 2023, when an international mountaineering expedition, led by Alex Mackenzie, attempted to scale the eastern face of Mount Kanchenjunga, the world's 3rd highest peak. The team included 5 members. Alex Mackenzie, a 46-year-old Scotsman with 2 decades of Himalayan climbing experience. Anna Sokolova, a 38-year-old Kazakh climber who had summited all 8,000ers. James Hope, an Australian doctor and mountaineer. Min Ho Pak, a South Korean photographer and high-altitude specialist. And Chiring Sherpa, a 3rd-generation Nepali mountain guide. The expedition aimed to pioneer a new route on the mountain's eastern face, considered nearly impassable due to its vertical ice walls and frequent avalanches. All 6 previous attempts to conquer this section had failed, and 4 climbers had died trying. Locals called the area Korlo Lamo, the Wheel of the Death Goddess in the Tibetan dialect. According to legend, the mountain goddess guarded a portal to the afterlife here, where the souls of the dead would pass. At 5,800 meters, the climbers began encountering unexplained phenomena. Electronic compasses gave erratic readings, and GPS signals randomly dropped out despite clear skies. The team attributed it to high metal content in the rocks, perhaps iron or other magnetic materials. At dawn on day 3, while camped on a narrow ledge at 6,200 meters, Anna noticed strange bird behavior. A massive flock of Himalayan vultures, rare in this area, was circling in thermal currents above a steep slope about 500 meters away. Among them were 2 enormous Himalayan eagles, with wingspans up to 3 meters. Their presence at such altitude was unusual, but even stranger was their flight pattern, repeatedly circling the same point, as if trying to draw attention. Upon seeing the birds, cheering Sherpa turned pale and refused to continue the planned route. Initially evasive, he finally shared a local legend. His grandfather once told him about the Ramtrulma, mountain guardian spirits that take the form of giant birds and guard places where the worlds of the living and the dead intersect. When Ramtrulma circle one spot, it means they are protecting trapped souls. Skeptical but curious, Mackenzie noted that such behavior often occurs when predatory birds spot large prey or carrion. The team decided to deviate from their route to investigate. At worst, they'd lose a couple of hours. The new path led them to a steep, icy slope ending in a sheer drop. As they neared the point over which the birds circled, the eagle's behavior intensified. They dove to near head level, then soared back up, as if guiding the climbers. Suddenly, one eagle dove into the snow just 30 meters from the group. When the climbers approached, the bird flew away, leaving behind a deep depression in the snow. Minho Pak used his ice axe to dig. At about a meter down, he struck something solid. The sound was metallic. 15 minutes later, a fragment of white fuselage with a blue-red stripe appeared, the signature livery of Malaysian Airlines. The climbers couldn't believe their eyes. At over 6,000 meters, in a place considered inaccessible even to elite climbers, lay wreckage of a passenger plane. Their first thought was to call for rescue, but satellite communications failed. All devices showed full battery, but no signal. They decided to expand the excavation to assess the size of the find. Over the next 4 hours, the group cleared snow around the wreckage. By evening, they had uncovered a section of fuselage with 4 windows and the marking MH192. It was the missing Malaysian flight, vanished 34 years earlier. Now it was clear why it was never found. It had crashed in a place deemed unreachable. No helicopter could hover at such altitude due to thin air, and ground teams had never explored this area, as it didn't lead to any known peak. The next morning, after a tense night beside the wreckage, the climbers resumed digging. By midday, they discovered a gap in the fuselage wide enough for a person to crawl through. Alex Mackenzie and Anna Sokolova, the most experienced climbers, decided to enter the aircraft, while the others continued clearing snow outside. Inside the aircraft, time seemed to have stopped. Oxygen masks hung from the ceiling. Half-empty cups rested on tray tables. In the aisle lay an open Time magazine with a photo of the Berlin Wall on the cover, just days before its fall. The climbers moved with extreme caution, wary of disturbing the fragile balance of the wreckage. In the first row of the cabin, they discovered a bag of mountaineering gear. Inside was an ice axe engraved with JS, the initials of Johann Steiner, a renowned mountaineer who had been aboard. Next to it lay his passport and a leather-bound notebook, surprisingly well preserved. When Mackenzie opened the notebook, a chill ran down his spine. It was a diary Steiner had kept after the crash. The last entry was dated December 16, 1989, more than a month after the plane vanished. Steiner's diary revealed a harrowing story of survival. Out of 178 people on board, only 47 survived the first night. Most died on impact when the plane slammed into the mountainside during a snowstorm. Captain Chandra was among the survivors and took command. He organized a shelter using fuselage debris, rationed the remaining food, and imposed strict water discipline. Steiner wrote that the crash had been caused by a strange magnetic anomaly. All instruments had failed simultaneously. The The pilots were flying blind. Moments before the collision, the captain had seen a strange glow on the mountainside, as if the mountain itself was glowing from within. He tried to veer away, but it was too late. The diary continued, detailing the fight for survival in extreme conditions. Temperatures dropped to -45 degrees Celsius at night. On the 5th day, survivors noticed strange bird behavior, huge eagles circling the crash site. On the 7th day, something unbelievable happened. One of the eagles dropped a mountain goat near the shelter. The animal was dead, but still warm. At first, they thought it was a coincidence, but the next day, the bird returned with another carcass. It seemed the eagles were feeding them intentionally. Captain Chandra claimed that in 20 years of flying over the Himalayas, he had never heard of anything like it. The eagles continued to bring food for the next 2 weeks, saving them from certain starvation. By late November, however, conditions worsened sharply. A massive snowfall buried the wreckage, turning it into an icy tomb. Oxygen supplies were dwindling, and many suffered from severe altitude sickness. An entry dated December 4th stated that 3 more had died that day. Only 18 people remained. Captain Chandra said they had to descend or all would perish. He proposed digging a tunnel through the snow to escape. The eagles still circled above daily. Steiner sometimes felt they were trying to tell the humans something. The final entry was short and ominous. Dug a tunnel. We made it outside. Captain says we must go down the southeastern slope. The eagles have flown away. Last night, I saw the strange glow on the rocks again. It pulsed like a living heart. The local monks in our group say it's the light of passage, a path to another realm. I don't know whether to believe them, but I have no other explanation. If someone finds this diary, know this: we fought to the end and never gave up. The climbers were stunned. It seemed some passengers had survived and attempted a descent. But what happened to them? Why were they never found? And what role did the eagles play in all of this? As the investigation continued, the team discovered another journal in the cockpit, the aircraft's logbook. Captain Chandra had continued to record everything, noting all the bizarre phenomena. On November 28th, he wrote that the compass was still going haywire. The needle spun continuously, sometimes counterclockwise. All electronic instruments powered by the emergency generator displayed nonsense. The altimeter read -2,000 meters, despite their altitude clearly being over 6,000. The thermometer swung wildly from +35 to -60 with no logic. That night, the radio operator tried to activate the emergency transmitter and swore he heard voices in an unknown language through his headset. It was as if the place was distorting reality itself. In one of the final entries, the captain described a strange event he had witnessed with the surviving monks. That night, the glowing light appeared again on the slope. The monks conducted some kind of ritual, chanting mantras. They said the glow was a gateway between worlds, and those who passed through it would be granted a new life in another dimension. As a man of science, the captain hadn't believed in such things, but after all they had endured, he was ready to consider any possibility. If they couldn't descend, maybe it was worth the risk to find out what lay beyond the light. Later that same day, the climbers found something even stranger in the plane's tail section. The emergency exit had been opened from the inside, and dozens of feathers lay scattered around it. Some belonged to Himalayan eagles, confirmed by Minho Pak, an amateur ornithologist. The feathers were arranged in a spiral-like pattern, at the center of which lay a small metal object. It was an old Tibetan amulet depicting a winged being. Later, Cheering explained it was a symbol of the Ram trauma, spirit guardians who take the form of giant birds. When the climbers resumed clearing the snow outside, they found tracks leading down the mountain. The remnants of the tunnel Steiner had written about. It led to a cliff edge and ended abruptly. Beyond it loomed a sheer 500-meter ice wall, impossible to descend without special gear. There was no way to tell what had become of the survivors. If they went that way, they would have surely fallen. But then, their bodies should have been below. Yet nothing was found. That evening, as the team returned to the aircraft to spend the night sheltered from the wind, something inexplicable happened. James Hope's satellite phone, which had been dead all day, suddenly came to life, emitting strange sounds. It wasn't regular transmission, but a sequence of short and long beeps, like Morse code. Hope recorded it. Back at base camp, one of the assistants, a former radio operator, decoded it. The message read, "We are alive, but not here." At night, the climbers saw the same glow that Captain Chandra and Johann Steiner had written about. It appeared on a cliff about 300 meters from the plane, a pulsating, bluish light, resembling the aurora borealis, but concentrated in a single point. The light spiraled inward, twisting into its center. The strangest part was that when they pointed flashlights at it, the beams of light bent, as if space around the glow was distorted. On the morning of the final day, as the climbers prepared to leave the crash site and report their findings to the authorities, they saw the eagles one last time. The birds surrounded them in the air, forming a living ring. One of them carried an object in its claws. The eagle swooped down and dropped it at the feet of Alex Mackenzie. It was a worn leather wallet. Inside was the ID of Captain Rajiv Chandra and a photo of his family. On the back of the photo was a handwritten note. "Pass through the light, a new life. Don't look for us here." The date on the note was December 17, 1989, the day after Steiner's last diary entry. 3 days later, the climbers descended to base camp and contacted Nepalese authorities. Within a month, a major expedition to the crash site was organized, including rescuers, researchers, and representatives from Malaysian Airlines. They confirmed all of Mackenzie's team's discoveries, but failed to solve the mystery of the vanished survivors. Oddities continued during the official expedition. All electronic devices malfunctioned near the aircraft. Compasses showed random directions. GPS devices gave coordinates with kilometer-wide errors. Meteorologists recorded an unusually high level of electromagnetic radiation in the area, but couldn't identify the source. Geologists discovered that the rock beneath the aircraft contained an unusually high concentration of rare earth metals, like gadolinium and neodymium, known for their strong magnetic properties. However, these anomalies did not explain the glow or the strange behavior of the eagles. Analysis of the black box found in the wreckage revealed that just before the crash, the aircraft entered a zone of intense electromagnetic disturbance. All instruments failed at once. Communication was lost. The final words of the captain, recorded by the cockpit voice recorder, were, "What is that light? It's right in front of us. Pull the yoke, we're..." The recording cut off mid-sentence. Locals from the nearby village of Kunlun told investigators that Mount Kanchenjunga had always been considered sacred and dangerous in their folklore. According to legend, there is a door between worlds on its eastern slope, guarded by spirit sentinels in the form of giant birds. Those who find this door, when it opens, can cross into another dimension, where suffering and death do not exist. Even more astonishing, the village elders claimed that about a month after the plane disappeared, strange people appeared in nearby villages. Not quite locals, but not strangers either. They spoke Nepali with a strong accent, had unusual appearances, and possessed strange knowledge. These people lived in the villages for several weeks and then disappeared, saying they were going on a long journey east. DNA analysis of feathers found in the plane revealed surprising results. While most belonged to Himalayan eagles, some samples contained genetic markers unlike any known bird species. Scientists speculated these might belong to a previously unknown population of predatory birds adapted to life at extreme altitudes. The most astonishing discovery was found among Captain Chandra's personal belongings. In the pocket of his uniform jacket was a neatly folded sheet of paper with a detailed drawing of a spiral-shaped portal and complex mathematical equations describing its properties. Physicists who studied the notes were stunned. The equations described a theoretical model of a space-time tunnel or wormhole, using the language of modern quantum physics. Such concepts only began to be seriously developed by scientists in the 2010s, 20 years after the crash. The mystery of Flight MH192 remains unsolved. The official investigation concluded that the plane crashed due to a combination of extreme weather and a failure of navigation systems caused by a natural geomagnetic anomaly. The fate of the survivors, who left the plane on December 16, 1989, is still unknown. No bodies were found on the mountain slopes or at the end of the tunnel dug in the snow. Alex Mackenzie and his team gained international recognition after their discovery. They continue to investigate the mystery of Flight MH192, gathering testimonies and studying archives. Mackenzie visited the families of several passengers, including Captain Chandra's widow. She shared that a week before his final flight, her husband had told her of a strange dream. He dreamt of flying through a tunnel of bright light, accompanied by enormous birds with human eyes. At the end of the tunnel, he saw another world, beautiful and peaceful. Upon waking, he told her, "If something happens to me, know that I won't die. I'll just go somewhere else." A year after the crash site was discovered, Minho Park published a photo book titled Wings Over the Abyss, dedicated to the expedition. In one of the photos taken on the final day at the crash site, something inexplicable was captured. Above the wreckage, against a blue sky, a massive eagle was seen soaring, but when zoomed in, its shadow on the snow resembled a human silhouette. Scientists continue to study the magnetic anomaly in the crash area. Every year, the eagles return to the wreckage, as if guarding it from outsiders. Locals now call the eastern slope of Kanchenjunga not the wheel of the goddess of death, but the path of birds, and say that in clear weather, a strange shimmer can sometimes be seen from the summit, as if a door between worlds opens there. In villages at the base of Kanchenjunga, stories are told of wanderers who appear every few years, as if from nowhere. They never speak of their past, but can predict the weather with uncanny accuracy and possess deep knowledge of the mountains. They're often seen holding strange amulets, metal spirals resembling the one the climbers found in the plane. Alex Mackenzie recently received a strange package with no return address. Inside was a small silver pendant shaped like an eagle with outstretched wings. On the back, a single phrase was engraved. "The path is open to those who believe. Seek us at sunrise." Captain Chandra's widow claims she has seen her husband in dreams several times over the years. He always says the same thing: "I'm alive, just not here. The place where we are now is beautiful. Do not grieve for me." The mystery of Flight MH192 continues to haunt scientists and researchers. Was it a rare natural phenomenon, a manifestation of quantum physics, or truly a magnetic anomaly of unimaginable power? Perhaps we will never know the truth. As one local monk said, "Some of the mountain's secrets are not meant to be solved. They exist to remind us of the limits of human understanding."